Well, good day, folks, and welcome into the Secret Solve. Today I'm wrapping up my participation in the Secret and the Secret Tribute puzzles. If you're familiar with my show, I had recorded a large number of videos on The Secret by Byron Preiss. I went through all the chapters, gave all the information I had in my brain, and research about the back of the book, the front of the book, and the different puzzles. Today, I'm going to do a final show, hopefully to recap some of my thoughts on that. I'm moving on to doing a different treasure hunt, so probably won't be participating in this community going forward. But for those people that have not seen my presentations on this, perhaps if you discover the secret in the future, you'll have my input. So to do this, I'm going to try to share my screen here. Hopefully this works. And I can just recap some of my highlights that I put together over the period of time that I worked on this. Okay, so hopefully we've got this up on the stream. So I created a website in WordPress called The Secret Solve. So thesecretsolve.wordpress.com is a online or web-based presentation of some of my ideas. I've also recorded a number of different videos on this channel called The Secret Solve. But basically, we're talking about The Secret. That's this book by Byron Preiss. And the first image is the image for San Francisco. So I'm going to click on that tab. Here in the beginning, I discuss what I believe to be some of the ways in which you should go about solving the secret. This section here tells you about the tribute solve created by John Michaels, Kit Palancar, and a few other people who haven't really told us who those people were. It got launched with this thing called the Prelude to a Tribute. There's some information about this on Jenny Kyle's site. One of the things that you might want to look at is many of our fair folk have made the voyage out to the new world after Cat and Jack did show it by two good folk of heart. But alas, the new man, with his iron and his plastic and his siege of asphaltium, has wrung from the land near all quiet. The fair folk have broken, then rolled into hiding. The machine herds has overrun even the sacred 12 cask reliquaries. Nay, we do not begrudge those of the new people who had found and taken possession of any cask, for they did so with honor and mischief, in the proper way of our people. Yet we, last of the yar on, fear that the remaining unclaimed cask may be lost, buried beneath the architecture of man. Okay, well, so anyway, they summarize all this and created this 13th hunt. And now primarily people are looking, I think, in Cherokee Park because of that. But I want you to look at this image of this tribute where it shows this dragon-faced character with this little triangle on top of his head. So you see the guy sticking out his tongue matched over here with this triangle on top of the head. Then down here, we get this volleyball symbol right here in the middle of this presentation. Now, was there clues to be had in here? I think there probably was. And then we've got the High Gold Mansion, and we've got the animal, and people familiar with the tribute know exactly what this is. But the main important thing to point out is that in this area, this is the state of Kansas, folks. Right there. That's the state of Kansas. And then when you get down here to the probing location is D.C. It's Dodge City. And this, if you look at the shape of this little eye here and the detail, how that same triangular structure is repeated there. And this is where to go. It's called Boot Heel. That's a feature of the park. And this woman here is Carrie Nation. And here's her hatchet. And so this is tells you to go to Carry Drive. Okay, this little structure over here with the volleyball court. So you've got a standard here, and then you've got a post, and then you've got a net. So you've got a net. And this tells you the exact distance from the volleyball court net. There's also a net structure here as well. If you go to Dodge City, this is the top of the building over there at the Boot Hill, and this is the hanging tree. The hanging tree. There's also a backdrop of the elevator that you can see from Wright Park in this area as well. And so the elements are pretty much designed into the image. There's a 7 and a 1. If you go to where the distillery is, it'll tell you that 71 million cattle were driven through Dodge City, Kansas. And so there's a whole bunch of animals in here. It's basically a zoo of animals. Notice the shape here. But the point I'm actually making is that if you look at the top of the image here, you'll see the structure, and they basically put this out there as the proxy item. This triangular shaped piece of croptolite. This piece of croptolite. You may notice that dog faced image is there. And so the other confirmer they were giving you in the puzzle that this was the proxy item was that they included this that exact dog face image is in this actual proxy item. So I guess to summarize the tribute, there's really no need to go look for this. The reason they're embarrassed to give you the full story about this is it's based upon a story of the Carr brothers, who, if you need to look it up, you can look up the Carr brothers for more information on that. So hopefully that puts to rest this whole entire tribute puzzle, where it was found, how it was found, and who found it. There's really no need to look for it. It's not in Cherokee Park. And the fact that John Michaels died about a week after I sent him a picture of that is all I really need to know. So moving on, I'm going to go back to the chat here, see if anybody's jumped in. Hey, Jeff, good morning, good day, good to see you. All right, so so now I'm going to go see if we can look a little bit at the San Francisco, the very first puzzle in the book. And I apologize for flipping back and forth between the screens. So let's see if we can look at the San Francisco image a little bit. Okay, so we've now got the San Francisco image up. This is the image number 1 for the puzzle. Now, I differ greatly from the rest of the community in how I approach these puzzles. I truly believe there's a one-to-one relationship between the image and the verse. And so, what I see in this particular image is I see this face here. This nose could be the Quake Tower and possibly be that. I see a C here in this one hand, and I see an I here. Now, I don't know if that means Catalina Island. It also could be these 3 fingers mean Wrigley. Could be a baseball reference. There is a pearl here. People try to put this as Janis Joplin using the pearl. Other people have said that this is this Wrigley thing. The reason I'm pointing out Wrigley is because Wrigley famously has a place on Catalina Island, if you will, where he was as a known commodity. This could be a tea kettle. This appearance of this deadwood, get it? Natalie Wood, dead wood. People try to say that this prison detail is Alcatraz, but there's also a window decal like that in several other places in San Francisco. And one of them is down there by one of the hotels that's close to the flood fountain. And so, just to summarize my thoughts on this, C and I, uh, and then the cat's eyes for Catalina Island. So, if you go back up to the image, you've got this shape of in the belly section of the image, which I show as being this. So, if you rotate this and put it on top of that, um, does it end up being Catalina Island? I don't know. Um, Chewing gum, Wrigley's, the G, I don't know, Wrigley's, I don't know if the G matches up or not for the chewing gum. Uh, is this a juicy fruit in here? I still was wondering if that was gumballs in juicy fruit. I don't know. But maybe it's just a gumball machine. Some people say that's a strawberry. Could be a strawberry. Strawberry fields forever. I don't know. There's some history of soapstone. There's two B's in here. I don't know if this is for Brent Banning, who is, and there's another B here. So I don't know, or that could be a 6. It's hard to say. Um, Here is the Avalon, Ada, Mount Ada. So I don't know if this gate to Mount Ada was to be a reference point here. Probably not. It's not close enough to matching the detail. And again, who knows what this gate looked like at one time. But, I thought maybe Natalie Wood looked like Natalie Wood. The thing about Natalie Wood is if you read the story, the verse that goes along with this, there has a lot to do with the Russians. And in the first chapter of The Secret, they say it's important to discover the history of Russia. Uh, she moved to Santa Rosa, if you will. She was born in San Francisco. Uh, One of the things is that when Wood was unable to cry on cue, her mother tore a butterfly into pieces in front of her and assured that she would sob for a scene. And I think there's a butterfly piece right here in the image. Uh, she was in the films Driftwood and the Rose Bowl Story. She was a straight A student, one of the few child actors to still excel in arithmetic. So again, some of these symbols are math symbols. She received several Golden Globes. She was found off the coast of Catalina Island. If you look at her face, the face of that image, there's a reddish hue on the cheek, and there's a brown appearance on the other cheek of Natalie Wood, or of the image figure. Well, let's just call her Adeline. And then the autopsy report also showed a bump or a bruise on the wrist. And so all of these elements, the swollen hand, the bruised wrist, the bruise on the cheek, and the abrasion all show up on the body of the image figure. So remember when we were talking about the shape of the bubblegum jar? Kind of looks like the shape of Avalon Bay. And so maybe they were just encapsulating Avalon Bay into the story. The Mount Ada is on this peak road, on Wrigley Road. And remember, the W could mean Wrigley Road. And there's a place called the Buena Vista Point. It's a scenic overlook on this road up here at the top. And I don't know, I kind of see that in the forehead, but then again, I call that the Coit Tower as well. But anyway, so there would be the road that you would turn to get to this location. If you go, this is the Upper Terrace Road that would lead you to the Buena Vista Point. There's a scenic overlook right here. And when you get to that scenic overlook, you have to go through this little structure, brick structure to get to that spot. Then you go by this area here. And finally, you get to the banning bench. And the banning bench looks basically like this. And there's the view from the banning bench back towards that area. I don't know if, there's a cross there's a cross in this image right here. Okay, and there's a cross behind the banning bench. Uh, that archway was right behind this area. Um, and then you see that prickly pear image uh, in there as well. And so there's the little pricklies, if you will. Watch your fingers if you go look for this. So the final line of this one is the stars pass by day and ships pass by night, unless you get on a boat with Robert Wagner. So, stars go to Catalina Island. Would be a place that maybe Sandy and, I don't know, Byron would have went to. But that's my idea for the solve for the first image in The Secret. So I'm going to go to the next one, give you my impressions on image number 2. Again, I went into some more detail about some of these ideas. So the image 2 is the Boston solve. And, we've had people say that Boston was solved using a different image than image 2. Well, I totally disagree with those people's presentation. It's all part of the cabal to keep you from finding any of these other ones, and more specifically, to keep you from understanding how depraved the creators of this treasure hunt really are. And so you can read about what they presented, but I'm going to present my Boston solve, which is for image number 2. So first thing you need to know is that Joseph A. Langone Jr. was a first lieutenant in the Massachusetts State Guard. Langone held a company during the Boston police strike of 1919. He followed in his father's footsteps and became an undertaker, eventually running the family funeral home in the North End. In 1927, the Langone Funeral Home handled the funeral of Sacco Vanzetti. It was one of the most tremendous funerals of all time. Well, you've got the weeping lion, and then you've got this football appearance for the eyes. Okay, so now we're getting into the information about Andy Papullo. And then here is the cuffs. So, the history of the area, definitely this person is cuffed. The next thing is that in the death mask, there is a knife sticking in the forehead. Also, if you look at the death mask, the shape of this continent in the death mask is Africa. So you definitely have Africa pictured. This part of the death mask, which I call the swelling bag, represents the molasses flood, because this is the actual tank that exploded in the molasses flood. So Papullo grew up in the Jamaica Plain and graduated from Boston Latin School before enrolling at Harvard. There's some indications of Harvard in this as well. In 1976, he was the starting cornerback. So the cornerback is the location next to home plate where they found the treasure. So that was your key information. Papullo's teammate Charlie K was approached by a prostitute while he was sitting in a van, and the prostitute then stole his wallet. And Papullo and a group of other people ran after him. The pimp ended up stabbing Papullo, and he died later because of a lack of oxygen. So located in the Boston's north end, Papullo Field serves as a scenic location for college softball games. Suffolk, the Suffolk. So the home plate image needs to be evaluated because the two eyes actually represent the shape of softball, if you will. The teeth represent the railing on the Cops Hill. So you can go to Cops Hill, and you've got triangular railing detail on that. These three stripes of the green, yellow, and red are actually to represent the uh, bocce ball courts that are on the other side of the fence next to the ball diamond. And I don't know if this little star was the location or in relationship to the pitching rubber. Uh, Not real sure exactly how that worked, but look at Suffolk University, Boston. Do you see the little star next to the pole, the torch? So the Suffolk University, Boston logo has a little tiny star next to the pole, and it has the shape of that ball diamond. That is the mascot. That is the Suffolk University crest. Okay. Well, this is where the Suffolk University women's softball team played. The Harvard logo is shaped like this, not quite the shape of the Suffolk one. The Suffolk one more appropriately matches the image. So we look at, hey, baby, you want to go for a ride? And then we've got the picture of the scantily dressed lady. The lady who propositioned Charlie K was of African American descent. So then you've got the image I put up earlier about how the guy died because of the lack of oxygen. We've got the growing sugar pear. Now, if you look at the sugar pear and then go back and do some research on the Boston molasses flood and look at the historical pictures of the time, you will see the similarity between that and the tank. So then you've got the flower. So if you approximate the shape of the north end piers with the petals in this flower, you will get a perfect match of and again, Andy Papula was basically pushing up daisies at the time. Okay, so here's an old photo of Papula Park. Notice some of the elements. The pitcher circle. See how softball's played with the pitcher circle and the pitching rubber? Okay, now let's go back and look at these eyes. Oh, okay. Got a pitching rubber and a circle. I guess that maybe makes sense. So you notice that the color of these poles in the park, the color of these poles are white. And the verse that they're using to convince you of their accuracy, their solve, is telling you that these poles, all the poles in this park, are white. Now, okay, remember how we talked about in the verse there are 18 freestand watch? Well, over here, you're going to have a batter, you're going to have a catcher, and you're going to have an umpire, and they're all waiting for the pitch. And so you've got 9 players on each team, and you've got the umpiring crew. Now, you notice that you've got a first base umpire in college sports. You've got a third base umpire in college sports. And then you have a umpire behind the plate. So 18, you've got 9 players on each team. You've got 3 umpires, and you've got 3 are standing watch. Now, some people would say, oh, but the catcher is crouched. So here's the 3 bocce ball courts. They are basically in this area, right over here. And here is another view of the poles looking back towards Cops Hill as if you were in the outfield. Mainly pointing out that here is the eye level view. Do you really think that you can see flags across the ocean there? I don't know. Maybe you can. I do see a little bit of water in the background over here in this area. right? But I see a pretty, I mean, maybe it's clear enough that you could see across the bay because there wasn't any fence back there, uh, I guess. But um, please cuff me. Please cuff me. I'm wearing my outfit. So if you look at the image in the lion's hair, there's a bunch of tombstones. And now we get into looking at the tombstones that are actually on Copp's Hill. And one or two or three of these tombstones actually exactly match the shape of the ear in the lion. Okay, here's an exact one right here. Okay, I did my best to find the one that matches. Um, so there's 15 steps down to the ground. So I'm going to show you, and you may go count the steps. 1, 2, 3. You'll get to 15. So to get from Copp's Hill, you walk down this stairway to get to the ground, which is Commercial Street. Now I mentioned the metal railing in the teeth. So the second picture here is to show you the metal railings. See how those metal railings are all triangles? And if you look at them, they form that teeth design. And what's really funny about this, and here's an actual, over here is an actual shape of one of them that they all go together to form that teeth. The Old North Church is in this area. Outside the Old North Church is a lion's head. So outside the Old North Church, you've got your lion's head hanging out there. So the eye, people wanted to know what this eye stands for in the nose of the lion. And I included it in here. But so where Charlie K ended up getting stabbed was in an area called the combat zone. And the bar that they were visiting was something like the eye or something. You can read the historical articles about that. So there's these sexy little sirens, and here I consider that little sexy little siren with a light. You know, it was the sirens. So you have a leprechaun up here above the eye. This is to tell there's a leprechaun above the eye here, and this is to tell you that you are in Boston as well. There's one of the tombstones. There's another one of the tombstones in the hair. There's Africa. Here's Africa. Look at the shape of this continent. Look at the shape of that continent right there. That's Africa. This tells you about the Great Molasses Flood. Here's what a sugar bag looks like. Here's what an unfilled, and I had to use the Revere cane sugar bag because everybody thinks it was the ride of Paul Revere. But guess where the Revere sugar refinery was located? So then there's the sugar palm. So you've got these sugar palms right here. And that's when you open up the sugar palm, that's what the inside of a sugar palm looks like. Inside of a sugar palm. Okay, what else we got? The pear. Just don't call me honey. And people go, well, there's no shape of Massachusetts in this image. Au contraire, my friend. If you take that portion of the scarf right here, you actually have Massachusetts in the puzzle. You see how that little white thing goes out there? You see that little white thing goes out here? And there's a broken up area, like right here where the water is. See that? Broken up area. Well, see, they did actually include the image, the state. And I do believe they include the state in all the images. You just have to find them. And so it is. So if you, I actually have the wrong verse. I actually have the wrong verse paired with this example. I should go back and change that. I did this back when they were trying to confuse you with the verses. But anyway, if you match verse 2 with image number, with this particular, you'll get the correct answer. So let me read that to you out of the book, since I haven't updated my presentation. Let's go to the verses. So, at a place where jewels abound, okay, that's a diamond, ball diamond, 15 rows down to the ground. That's the number of rows that you need to go to get to the ground. In the middle of 21 from end to end, that's telling you it's the north end. Only 3 stand watch, and that's telling you it's a baseball diamond. Pitcher, catcher, and batter. As the sound of friends fill the afternoon hours, here is a sovereign people who built palaces to shelter. Well, of course, Suffolk, England, Palace. Suffolk baseball team, Palace. To shelter their heads for a night. Of course, it's a baseball game or softball game. Gnomes admire Fane's delight, the namesake meeting near the site, which just tells you that you're looking for a diamond at a diamond. So I want to update my WordPress presentation to reflect the correct verse. You got to remember, I put this together based upon what the pundits were telling you at the time about the secret and what verse to use. And I've since come to the realization it's a one-to-one match between the verses and the other. Okay, so now moving on to the next puzzle, which is the Image 3 Roanoke Island puzzle. Okay, so I'll give this a second to load. Looks like it's loaded well, so we're good to go. It looks like it's just you and I, Jeff, on today's show. Maybe it's just me. You might have left. So looking at the image number 3, and people think this is Roanoke Island, and I'm going to tell you why it's not Roanoke Island. Okay? First of all, in the middle of this, you have Old Blood and Guts himself. So George Patton is Old Blood and Guts. And we need to learn some things about George S. Patton. Or maybe we don't, depending upon your age. But there's several movies written about Patton, or not written, but performed about Patton. So one of the things is that the cavalry, so in this red image, there's a cavalry sword right here. There's also a horse, a cavalry horse right here as well in the image. There's another cavalry horse going this direction, and every single one of these are either a Patton sword in all of these different areas. And of course, we get the blood and guts. We've got all these bells, these keys, the security. There's all these security features in here. There's a bulging figure here wearing a leotard right here for fencing. And I believe this to be a stage. I think this is a stage. And I may add to my solve here because I was going to actually go look for this one. But I've got bigger fish to fry and a different treasure hunt. So I'm going to go deal with that. Okay, so I believe that this has to do with George S. Patton, the general, Old Blood and Guts himself. And I point out the blood and the guts. This is a protruding belly again. And this is a leotard for fencing, right? So let's look at the fact that Patton married Beatrice Banning, heir, is also interesting because it ties into the very first solve for Catalina Island with Banning. But anyway, Frederick Eyre made a fortune selling patent medicine. So here is a spoon. Right here, there's a spoon. And that spoon detail could reference the fact that we're talking about Frederick Eyre. So Patton was on the football team, injured his arm, and then he went out for the sword team in track and field, and he participated in the pentathlon. And he was actually in the 1912 Summer Olympics in Stockholm. So I call this a fencing mask. That's what I call that. It's a fencing mask. And I call this a fencing leotard right there. That's also the Battle of the Bulge, by the way. Anyway, here I pointed out this sword, and I pointed out that sword, and I pointed out that sword as well. Interesting enough, Patton redesigned the saber combat for the cavalry. And here is a picture of the model 1913 cavalry saber called the Patton saber, uh, which he basically redesigned. Those there could be some scabbards in there as well, but here is a picture of George S. Patton fencing at the 1912 Olympics. Notice the position of the legs here in this one, and then notice the position of the legs in this one. Again, a fencing posture, if you will. This is actually George S. Patton fencing. And then I mentioned the steeplechase, the horses in the image. Here's one of those horses. There's the mane of the horse right there. There's the horse's image right there. So Patton retired to California after being burned by an exploding gas lamp. He had jaundice. That might be why we have the yellow coloring of the image figure. It's not because it's gold, but because of jaundice. He then met Fox Connor. This is a picture of Patton, what the man actually looked like. He commanded the battle from a shell hole from another hour before being excavated. Here is a Patton tank in that image. And then he was involved in this other problem where he hit somebody over the head with a shovel. And so the Battle of the Bulge is probably one of his most famous battles. But the thing about the image is that you have to understand how Patton died. And again, they're not in the secret afraid of making fun of how people die, of ethnic slurs. They're not afraid of any of that. So it was a December 9th on a pheasant hunting trip near Spire. He saw derelict cars along the side of the road. Patton said, "How awful war is! Think of the waste." Moments later, his car collided with an American Army truck at low speed. Gay and the other passengers in the car were only slightly injured, but Patton hit his head on the glass partition in the back seat. He began bleeding from a gash to the head and complained that he was paralyzed and having trouble breathing. Taken to a hospital in Heidelberg, Patton was discovered to have a compression fracture and a dislocation of the cervical third and fourth vertebrae, resulting in a broken neck and a cervical spinal cord injury. He was paralyzed from the neck down. Patton spent most of the next 12 days in spinal traction to decrease the pressure on his spine. All non-medical visitors except for Patton's wife, Beatrice, who had flown from the U.S., were forbidden. Patton had been told he had no chance to ever ride a horse again or resume a normal life. At one point, he commented, "This is a hell of a way to die." He died in the sleep of an edema and heart failure about 6 p.m. on the 21st of December. Well, just, here's some examples of traction. One is being hung from, the feet, body down. But another traction position is obviously in the crucifixion position. And so here you've got the General George S. Patton being, and then I put this funny video in here of this guy in traction here. So Kentucky, of course, is this shape. And this shape I found in the back wall detailing. And then you have to realize that Fort Knox is the place in Kentucky where his museum is. So you can read about Henry Knox. Uh, this could be a crucible to melt gold, or it could be a stage. Um, in my thinking right now, I think that this area here is actually a representative. Like if you take this little area right there, that's Fort Knox. The actual, if you take a picture of Fort Knox turned upside down, it looks like that right there. But anyway, um, this gives you some information about Henry Knox being in the Boston Latin School, the same school that Andrew Papula went to. It also talks about some historical information. So you've got Fort Knox. This is another feature here that if you look at closely. So look at all these keys and these bells, something that's high security. Here's the actual uh, door entry to Fort Knox. So if you look at the Patton Museum and the surrounding area, here's a map. So there's a runway over here with the number 3 and 6 on it. And I don't know if Byron Preiss and his crew had access to aerial photography at the time. Highly doubtful that he did, but this is what would be called Keys Park. And this is the Fort Knox Community School District building. And this white building is the Patton Museum. So the Patton Museum is right here. And then you get to the Keys Park, which is this area over here. And I believe it extends to a ball field somewhere. Oh, I can't move that because it's a static image. But anyway, you got Keys Park next to the Patton Museum. I think this is where the ball diamond is, because there's a, a hive there. So this is a section of Keys Park. I wish I had a better view of that structure. Again, since this is so close to Fort Knox, you can't get aerial photography. Well, you can get the aerial, but you can't get. Nobody is allowed to drive on the streets because it's a military base, so you don't have the Google car view. But my best estimation of the location of puzzle number 3 is in this little amphitheater area here. Because, in the picture, you've got that area that I called a crucible. And then there's this little area inside this. And the reason I say this is because if you look at all the pictures of Xenophon and you look at all of the pictures of Thyses, you're going to find eventually a picture of the city that shows that type of a structure. And so my best estimation as to the location of this one is in that area of Keys Park. So let's just read the verse. And again, I got to go back and change my verses on this because I was following I'm going to mix up all my verses because that's what they did in Chicago. Those guys just need to admit they fucked up and had the fucking treasure given to them. And that would advance this community so far, but they won't do it. So the verse is, if Thucydides is north of Xenophon, take 5 steps in the area of his direction. Okay. So Thucydides, this is all, Thucydides and Xenophon are both military leaders. George S. Patton is military leader. Take 5 steps in the area of his direction. That's going to be the Patton Museum, which is going to, from this location, so you take 5 steps. A green tower of lights in the middle section near those who pass the Colosseum with metal walls. Well, this has metal walls all around the whole entire facility. Face the water, your back to the stairs. Feel at home. All the letters are here to see. So this is all the letters of George S. Patton, because it's George S. Patton's museum. The 8th day, 12th hour, lit by lamplight, in truth be free. Okay, so in the 18th day of the month, at this particular site, they have a film shown. So this is a site where you can go see a free movie in the park, if you will. And that verse, that's why you match this verse to this location, because they're talking about this location where you can get a free movie at midnight. So basically, Fort Knox has midnight movie night. I think the 18th day is the day in which the has something to do with patents, invasions, something. So I'm just saying my best estimation as to where this particular one is located is, this is lit by lamplight, a stage. Here's Sparta. This is what Sparta looks like. And Thucydides. Here is a green tower in the soccer field, if you want to use that. So here's your Child and Youth Services, Navy Federal, featuring the movie on the lawn. That one was at 6 o'clock. Here's another one that was at a different time. The Dixie Highway in the back of the book is right here. The Dixie Highway is right here. And that kind of looks like General George S. Patton sitting on the Dixie Highway sign to me. George Patton sitting on the Dixie Highway. Dixie Highway, George S. Patton building. Dixie Highway, George S. Oh, hold on. Dixie Highway, George Patton building. Dixie Highway, George Patton building. This is actually the school, Keys Park. All right, folks, that's my presentation for image number 3, what the purveyors of the chase misleading you to Roanoke. Again, trying to just set this record straight. The Dixie Pixie, it has a carpet bag up north where the sour mash flows. Okay. All right, folks. Well, there's the presentation for that Roanoke Island. So the Cleveland image was solved. I think the solve for the Cleveland image used the correct verse. Image 4 matched with verse 4. I think they solved it, but I don't think they solved it the way that was intended to be solved. Because the way I think that it was intended to be solved is that this is Rockefeller. This is David Rockefeller. This is a pith helmet, not a doughboy helmet. And this is David Rockefeller. And he may have gotten his fingers chopped off by the piranhas, which, let's see. There's one piranha. There's another piranha. There's another one. Oh, look, there's another one. There's another one. Anyway, look, there's another one. There's another one because David Rockefeller went missing. And the Asmat tribe, look, it's an Asmat warrior. It's an Asmat warrior right here. It's not a clown. That's an Asmat warrior sitting in there. And we all seen the Rockefeller there. Or is that a D? Is that a D for David? Maybe. So anyway, the tail's not quite attached right. The joints. You notice the propecia. So the Rockefeller family had propecia, but this young boy had a lot of hair at the time. So just Google a picture of David Rockefeller, if you will. The Asmat, missing fingers, all of this. The rest of this just gives you the information to get you to Cleveland. It gives you that state of Ohio. and all of that kind of thing. So I think they did this one. They got it right. Um, like I said, the fingers. Uh, there's a heart tattoo in there. Uh, there is this other guy that castrated the victims called Jigs. And at one time, I thought maybe this was Jigs, and they were referring to this area. But I'm now convinced that that's an Asmat warrior. So anyway, they got that one right, matched it up. It takes you exactly where you want to go to get the Cleveland correct. But I'm just pointing out some of the things they missed. In their story, this is a castrated. It does look like there might be some castration involved there. So this could be Jigs, which, would be a Cleveland serial killer who chopped people's bodies up. I don't know. But I still think the story of the pith helmet and David Rockefeller make a little more sense on this one. So that gets you that one solved. And now let's go to the one that created all the problems for the people trying to solve the secret images. And that's the Chicago solve. So just they obviously, said, oh, we recognize this windmill. Oh, we recognize that and that water tower. We recognized the bowman, and that, gave us the clue as to where to go. And then we saw this fencing fixture, and that gave us the thing. Well, what the fuck are all the blue roofs about? Why can't you, what did you use in your solve to explain why all these roofs are blue? Oh, because I drove by an M&B? And then why is this women's garment on top of the head of the figure, and why is this ear here? And why do we have glasses for Abraham Lincoln, who never wore glasses at all? Why do we have a shiny boot nose here? Why do we have a period incorrect garment for Abraham Lincoln? Why do we have an old figure when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated before he could even get a wrinkle above his eye? I don't know. But I'm going to try to explain this to you so that you'll know why. And then, of course, this is identified as being a fountain in Chicago. So this was probably one of the easier ones to get the city clue for. But let's look at old Abe Lincoln. There's Abe Lincoln. Look at Abe Lincoln. His nose is not that big. His eyes are what color? I don't know, blue. So you have all this information I give you about, but let's look at the uniform. Let's look at the period correct uniform of a person by the name of Jackson, if you will. Let's just look at Andrew Jackson here. Look at his photograph. Look at his nose, right? Look at old Andy Jackson. And then look at cholera. Look at the smallpox. These are both things that Jackson also ended up getting involved in a duel where he took a sword strike to his head. Like, oh, okay, I got my head, sword strike on it. Got hit in the head. God, I bet that hurt. So anyway, the ear for gossip. So he was involved in this petticoat affair, and that's why you have a piece of underwear with a big ear on his head, because it was a gossip. He was also involved in this boot nose, this shiny boot. He almost got killed because he wouldn't polish the boots. So that appearance of the boot is nearly exactly the appearance of his nose in this image. They have plantation. Talk a little bit about his expedition, but if you look at matching the verse lane 222, you'll see an arc of lights. Okay, so why were all the roofs in this particular image blue? The reason all those roofs are blue is because there's a building in Chicago called the Britannica Building. And since it's inception, it's featured a blue beehive light on the top of the building. Why are all those twos in the neck on the image figure? Because it matches directly to this. So if you go to lane 222, this is 222 Jackson, next to that goes along Grant Park. You'll see an arc of lights, and that's the arc of blue light that shines from the Britannica building. Weight and roots extended together save the sight of granite walls. Almost everything to the north and behind this location and many of the buildings are granite. The granite is also to give you the granite state. Windswept halls, citadel in the night. A wingless bird ascended, born of ancient dreams of flight. A wingless bird is a rail. You look up the definition of a rail. So you could just substitute the line, a wingless bird ascended, for a rail ascended, born of ancient dreams of flight. Beneath the only standing member of a forest to the south. Okay, so when the treasure hunt happened, they had planted a bunch of these 5-foot trees. Maybe they were 10-foot. Anyway, there was a bunch of trees south of one large prominent tree. And the large prominent tree was fairly close to where this is. White stone closest at 12 paces from the west side. Okay, go back to your railing picture. Go back to all that. That little stone on the top of that fence was white. And if you took 12 paces from that stone, go ask Rob, go ask them where exactly they found this and to pace it off from the fence and fixture. Get permission to dig out. A permission is a grant. Getting permission is a grant to dig out. So here's all the twos in the collar, 222. Here is lane and 222, East Jackson Drive, Chicago, Illinois. There's a granite wall. There's a granite wall right there, right? Here's the sidewalk. This is the exact location of this path. This path is at 222. There is a big fucking tree right here. You can't deny that that's a bigger, you can't deny that this tree right here is bigger than all of them and all of them. Look at the trunk sizes of all the trees over here. Look at the trunk sizes. Look at all the trunk sizes of the trees over there. Look at the trunk of this tree right here. Look at the size of that. Now, Rob and his buddies have a little problem counting the number of trees because they used a tree count to verify and justify their solved location. What I'm telling you is that you simply change verses to explain your location to lane 222, put you right on this tree. There's your forest. There's your forest. And this is west. Here is the beehive. Look, the little blue thing on the top of the Britannica building. Maybe that explains why all you have is a bunch of blue roofs in this, right? Maybe this is why you have all the blue roofs in the image figure, is because that picture is taken from 222 Jackson. So here it is, lit up. So we finally get to the fence and fixture. Now, this stone was white at the time. There's some more granite walls over there. There's some more granite walls over there. Right? Oh, I did actually find a historical figure. Look, I found the historical picture of when the fucking stone was white. See? I actually found the historical picture of it being white. I don't know why it's this color now. Could have Google Earth now, it's going to be this color. But I actually found it from the historical perspective. So anyway, all you have to do is simply. Oh, by the way, Andrew Jackson is a full-blooded Scotsman. Poor old Abe Lincoln was an Englishman. And those people who want to tie this to the Scottish puzzle, help me explain Abe Lincoln, please. So there's the correct and true solution to the puzzle for Chicago. And again, all you have to do is simply change your perspective. Thank you, John Collins Black, for that advice. Change your perspective to a man who, periodically correct, looks more similar to the image figure. So Andrew Jackson got old, needed glasses, was involved in the petticoat affair, right? There's an A right there, stylized. Oh, well, that was for Abraham Lincoln. Okay. All right. These boats in this image? Oh, well, Andrew Jackson probably had more to do with that. And there's all your twos, right? Oh. All right. So, moving on. Two can keep or study the secret. Yeah, it's just you and me. Well, Jeff, I'm getting out of this community because there's too much misinformation in it. So here, let's move on. I'm going to do this in one show. It may take me 2 hours, but I'm getting out of the secret. So the Florida image, number 6. We've all seen the image. We know what it looks like. It looks like Florida. So I think that part's probably right. But I actually think that the guy that does a YouTube show from this area is all wrong. And I'm going to give you this idea, which was my first impression, based upon all the false information that was given to me from George and the other people in the 12 Treasures community. Based upon what they found, I came up with this. But I'm going to then give you my revised idea as to where I think this is. And I don't have this printed up, and I'm not going to spend time doing it, but I'll just give you the location. So let's go through this first. So when I first got involved in the secret, I thought that we had to be talking about a flag being planted. And this is a Zia symbol of people who indigenously lived near Tallahassee. I thought maybe this was a diving or a space exploration helmet. And the swollen leg, obviously I thought had to do with Ponce de Leon. And so I thought the Tallahassee is probably the location because the state flag was planted there. Again, he was poisoned. His leg swelled up from a Mackinac tree, and I thought maybe this was the swelling poisonous leg. The legs were exceptionally long. But what struck me of the image figure is that the Florida State Seminole Indian is the mascot. And here is the mouth open Indian looking upward. Okay, so you've got the mascot of the Florida State Seminoles is an Indian looking upwards to the sky, right? And the mouth is open, looking upward in the image figure for this one. So again, the Creek, some people say that's a Zia Indian symbol. I think it's a Creek Indian symbol for sad. And anyway, there's the native people here were the Appalachee that lived in the Florida Panhandle. They had this game. This arm is exaggerated in length. Well, anyway, they had this game where they would put a goalpost with a nest in it. And in this game called Appalachia Ball, you are awarded 2 points if the ball arrived at the nest, and 1 point if the ball landed against the pole. And so I don't know if that has anything to do with this or not, but this all brought me to Tallahassee, and I went to the Cascade Park because it looked to me like all of that rock image and stuff was cascading. Um, I'm not sure why I put this Leon, but so look at this. Look at these rocks. They're in a like kind of a cascading feature, right? And wouldn't it be fun to have a cask in Cascade Park? So there's the history of the Cascades Park, and during the period of time when they were Byron Preiss was active in planting his treasures out there, this particular park, I think, might have actually been shuttered because there was a toxic waste issue involved. And if you also remember, there was this crying Indian that used to be on TV all the time about pollution. And so this became a site where they needed to have pollution. And I looked at this image and I go, what is that in the background? And I came to the conclusion that that was coal, that all of that rock was actually coal. And then I started looking at the clouds. And these aren't really clouds because clouds don't go all the way to the ground to a centralized location. And I came to the conclusion that that was a gas plume. So this is a gas plume going upwards and not a cloud forming in the sky. And so the Indian has his coal face looking up, the gas going up into the sky. So there was famously a coal gasification plant adjacent to and right next to Cascades Park that produced the energy for this area. And in the park was this prime meridian marker. So the prime meridian marker looked like this, and it also had the bars extended around it, etc. And it was kind of looked like this for the longest time. And I don't know, maybe I'm trying to make this into my prime meridian marker, if you will. But anyway, these trees, this style tree is pretty common in this area for this park. Here's why St. Augustine, it's important to go to St. Augustine when you're looking at Cascades Park, because there is St. Augustine Street that brings you right to the park. So thank you, George Ward, for giving me that tiny piece of my puzzle that helped me solve this. Let's look at the birds. So you've got these birds in this park, and some of them are a little disfigured, and then there's some animals in here, and some of them are a little strange looking, deers and cats and foxes. And I think this kind of spells out Tallahassee down here in this T, A, H, A. Anyway, but there's these animals in here. And the Parks and Recreation, the Florida Wildlife and Parks Department building is a big white building that's adjacent to the park, Cascades Park. And this green appearance in the water, I think, indicates the idea of the pollution. And so here's the building where the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Office is right here. That's a big white building where the Florida is. And here's a strange post on the Department of Wildlife's building site. I mean, I don't know what the fuck this is. This sticks out like a sore thumb because it doesn't have anything on the top of it, but that's a post that's like right here in this park. I don't know why it's there. So, is this a hazmat suit? Is that helmet hat? Is that a hazmat suit? Or is it a space helmet? Maybe Spacely Sprockets could tell us. But anyway, here's what the park looked like about the time that it was undergoing its transformation. It doesn't look anything like this now, folks. Nothing. It doesn't look anything like this. So this was during the time that they were trying to look at this green appearance right here. Look at that pond scum. Look at that pond scum on that, right? Well, anyway, this is a picture of the park. It doesn't look anything like this at the time. This is the coal gasification building, all right, over here. Right over there is the coal gasification building. Right over here is, I believe, that wildlife building right over here. And I think the prime meridian marker's up here somewhere. I couldn't find another picture of this particular park other than this one from the time period we're wanting to look at. I think the Bloxham House is over here. And this probably right about here. Okay, so there's that. So if you properly match the verses to the images 1-to-1, so you get, of all the romance retold, men of tales and tunes, cruel and bold, seen here by eyes of old. Well, this could point to Bloxham and his slavery. It could point to the jail building, which is back here. That's that health building that I was talking about. Anyway, hear the cool, clear song of water. Hearken to the words freedom at the birth of a century, or May 1913. Okay, well, 1913 is when the Bloxham House, May of 1913 is when the Bloxham House was moved to its current location. Bloxham's Edwin and Edwina are named after him. Okay. He was a slave owner. Or on the 8th, a scene where law defended. And this is, I think, has to do with Lafayette. And the Lafayette land grant. The Lafayette land grant has to do with establishment of a prime meridian marker to determine all measuring points for surveying. And that's where I think that the Lafayette. So then you go on to the between two arms extended, below the bar that binds, beside the long palm's shadow, embedded in the sand, waits the fair remuneration, White House close at hand. Well, the White House, again, is the Bloxham House. And I already showed you the prime meridian marker. So here is the shadow. Here's the palm, right? There's the between two arms extended, beside the long palm's shadow, embedded in the sand. At this time, this is sand. Waits the fair remuneration, White House close at hand. So this is, like I said, here's that funky pole right here. Huh. That's strange. What the hell is that in that parking lot? But anyway, this is what your prime meridian marker looked like at the time. And I believe that I can't verify this, but I think that the law defended story of how this got placed there is on this monument. If anybody knows what these two placards said on this monument, I greatly appreciate knowing that. But what happened is the park went through some significant renovations. This is the old building that was part of the coal gasification plant. It remained, but they basically reconstruct the whole entire park. And the new prime meridian marker now looks like this. There's an amphitheater over here, and this is now the new prime meridian marker. You can see Gaines Avenue and Gladson and all of that's been. But I really do think that if you look very closely, as like they did in the Boston solve, if you look very closely, I think there's a tiny piece of a cask, maybe right there in that pile. So that was my solve. My alternative solve for this particular one has to do with the Neptune. I'm just going to give you the answer. My other alternative solve to this one is of all the romance retold, men of tales and tunes, cruel and bold, is the Neptune statue that's over in next to the Kennedy Space Center, and not in the park that has to do with the space launch, but there's a Neptune statue in a park where the space shuttle would have been. And oh God, I can't think of the name of that city near Cape Canaveral. God, what is the name? Anyway, there's this. That's anyway where I think that my alternative location is over by Cape Canaveral, and I base this because of this image in the back of the book that looks like Jackie Gleason sitting next to the space shuttle. So my alternative solve location for Florida is over by the where's Jackie Gleason at in the book? Gotta find that damn space shuttle. Oh. Oh, sorry about the pause. I'm looking for something. Oh, by the way, the rail ascended. Chicago pictures right there. There's a train crash right there on that track. What is the name of that city over there? This is more of my confirmation bias for the coal gasification plant. Well, I don't have it, so I don't have it. So I'm going to move on. I'll probably think of it. All right, so that's halfway through. Image number 7. Thought to be in New Orleans by the 12 treasures people. So let me help the 12 treasures people out a little bit. Give them some insight. We got the word preservation here. We've got we've got a Down syndrome child right here. So you've got this face, and then you've got the toes or the fingers. So two of the characteristics of a Down syndrome child is that their finger and fingernails look like this, and their face often looks like this. So this represents a Down syndrome children. You've got the checkerboard square in the background. Well, the checkerboard square, for most people growing up in the 1980s, was either a Pizza Hut tablecloth or it was the Purina Mills Company, Purina cat chow, dog chow, etc. But then we have the Purina color, checkerboard square, turning into a lavender color. instead. And so we are going from an area where Purina has business to where there might be a lavender something, maybe like a lavender lady, perhaps. We have the preservation here. Then we have Mr. Squires. So, and then we have the arch. So we have the arch here. We have one end of the arch there, one end of the arch there. We have Mr. Squires. So Mr. Squires thought that he could jump out of an airplane and land right here on the top of the arch. But unfortunately, when he deployed his second chute, or tried to deploy his second chute to get from here down to the ground, he slid all the way down to the side of the arch. And so the second parachute on his back was still there. He had 2 left feet and didn't quite accomplish the task. We do have some preservation. We have the date of prohibition, 1929. We've got the moon for the werewolf. Some people say there's a werewolf down in here somewhere. I'm good with that. There's some names right here. I'm also good with that. But let's just work through the solve here. So let's this time start at the spotter's guide. And why is there a foot with the incorrect number of toes and an arch down here? Step on a crack, break your mother's back. I don't know. What is this? What is that strange? That's awfully strange to be in the spotter's guide, right? There is a time capsule at the top of the arch. So when they were constructing the arch here, there's a time capsule that they put in right up here. So that's one instance of preservation in the idea of the solve. Again, this is pretty much the arch here. But there's more to the preservation than just that. Here's another occurrence of an arch, by the way. There's another occurrence. I already talked about the parachute jumper near aces high. Look, he was almost an ace. 1, 2, 3 left feet. Man, if he just wouldn't have slid down the side, he would have been famous. But anyway, Kenneth Squires landed on the top of the arch and fell down one of the legs. So again, they like to make fun of people. The other thing that happened is that several people flew their planes through the arch, if you will. You know, so that was another thing. And then this is the eyes. This is a famous company in St. Louis. It's called the Old Judge. So here's Old Judge. He's got his claws on a leaf. Here's the Old Judge right here. There, if you notice, this is an airplane right there. That's an airplane flying under the arch. So, you can call this an owl's foot, or you can call this a Down syndrome child. This could be a coffee sack with a post coming out of it. It's lavender though. So the other thing is, you have to look at this feature here of the church. So there's this feature of the church that looks like the window, or it looks like the shape above the clock, and the bluish appearance of it. I consider that part of the deal. And so you have the Gateway Arch National Parks right here, right? Okay. You've got the old courthouse, you got Bush Stadium, and then you have the Eads Bridge. And, you know, maybe this is Mrs. Eads. I don't know. Or maybe it's a Down syndrome child. So there's a St. Louis immigrant that may be related to the image called Joseph Pulitzer. And we have the news hounds in the back and all the other stuff. So there's a white handkerchief that was Pulitzer's only possession when he boarded a boxcar for St. Louis. Right? So you know, white handkerchief. Uh, Mercantile Library played chess. There's the werewolf. So here's the, I was using the wrong image for this one for the longest time. I probably should go back and change this, but I probably won't. But anyway, so my original thought on this was that this one had to be somewhere down by the um, Eads Bridge, because I was using the uh, 3 posts are high. Uh, so there's one of the other posts. The Education and Justice is the old judge building that's in McLeod's Landing. There's the Ace. Running north, but first across. Twain's Attention would be the riverboat. The giant pole is the appearance of the arch of from one's perspective. So if you were looking at the arch from that perspective, it would look like this. And then, so there's a stairway where the cask is kept. And I always thought that this shape here, now this is the public park that's north of the national park in St. Louis. And I always thought that if you use this as that capstone on the mantle, that it would take you to that place. So if you viewed from the Eads Bridge, you could find a location where this pole would be just a pole, and you can line that up. And there was the idea. So here's my alternative solve. I developed this one afterwards. I developed this a little bit afterwards because I found out some more information about St. Louis. And what I found out is in St. Louis, all this stuff is true about the jumper and these other things, but there was a few things I couldn't explain. And then I started looking at the idea of the preservation and the lavender appearance and the Down syndrome child. And I started to focus on this being a Down syndrome child. And there's this story, and the lavender. So part of this image gets you to St. Louis, but the rest of it's going to put you on the spot. And the spot is Cherokee Park. It's Cherokee Park by the brewery in McLeod's in St. Louis. Because the preservation has to do with the caves, the underground caves. And this has to do with the monkey-faced boy that used to live in the Limp Mansion. So the Lavender Lady is this woman that was married to the owner of the brewery, and they lived above the storage, the underground storage facility. And she loved lavender. And so this, I believe, could actually be in Cherokee Park, and it could be under the swing sets. So basically what you were getting out of this image was the Limp Mansion and then Cherokee Park. And this is why they're having so much fun with you in the secret community, laughing every time you say Cherokee Park, because there probably is one of these treasures in Cherokee Park, because there's basically 3 along Utah Street and Limp Avenue are the 2 boundary streets. And if you go up Limp Avenue, you'll get to the Limp Mansion. And that's all you need to know about the story of the monkey-faced boy, is it puts you at Limp Avenue and Utah Streets. And over here, you can view the brewery over on Wyoming Street and the St. Agatha Polish church is here as well. But there's also a giant pole that has the limp. Well, it doesn't have limp, but it has the United Shoe or a shoe company's name on it now. And adjacent to this is the checkerboard square, the place where you would find the Purina company. So my alternative location for this puzzle is in Cherokee Park in St. Louis. Running north, but first across in Jules' direction, is an object of Twain's attention. There's a giant pole, a giant step to the place where the cask is kept. And so, I don't know, that's my alternative solution. If it's not in the tiny park to the north of the arch, then it's over here in Cherokee Park. And I get over to Cherokee Park because of the Lavender Lady. And they have a lot to do with the founding of St. Louis. We may have to do a little research on the Lavender Lady. She supposedly haunts the Lemp Mansion, by the way. And you can stay in the Lemp Mansion suite. But anyway, there was a child involved here called the monkey-faced boy. But anyway, her name was Lillian Handlin Lemp, the Lavender Lady. She dressed her favorite color, and she had a bunch of horses whose harnesses were dyed in lavender color. Well, anyway, I'll let you read up on the Lemp Mansion, the monkey-faced boy, the Lavender Lady. The Lavender Lady better explains all of the larger images in this figure than my solve down at. And then if you consider that this is a saddle, that's a saddle, you are looking at a swing set. You're looking at a swing set. All right. Oh, Jeff's just driving around and listening. Well, I hope not to drive you crazy. All right, moving on. Doing this in one setting. Okay, back to the top. But you have to remember that the people in the secret community are trying to jack with you on all of these puzzles. All right, my original thought on the Houston image is that we had a problem. Houston, we have a problem. It's called George and 12 Treasures and Jenny and unmysterious writings and all this bullshit. So we have a space shuttle flying around. Well, Jeff, you'll have to come back and look at the presentation because I'm actually going through my WordPress document page by page. So you have the North Star or something. You have a water tower with a ball on top. You have a camel on top of a... I don't know if this is something you use to make... I don't know if this is a tortilla stomper. I think it could be a tortilla stomper because it could be Frito-Lay. This could be another tortilla stomper. In other words, this is used to stomp corn and making tortillas. And this then is obviously another rhinoceros. Water, water, water. And then you have a spinning figure from the desert wearing a mask and because he's looking for water. Okay. So I don't know where the fuck where in Houston is your state? I can show you the state. The state in image number 8 is so blatantly obvious. The spinning figure spinning up a tornado is standing on the state of Kansas. The state of Kansas is basically a square with one corner cut off. Well, here we have a spinning figure sitting on a state with a corner cut off. I don't know why, but it's the the image figures shadow makes a dreidel. Do you ever notice that? The spinning image figures a dreidel. I don't know if this thing in the back is a fucking horse. Uh, I don't know what that is wedged up against the tortilla stomper. Uh, but we have a ruby, and Ruby, the Wizard of Oz, Ruby Slippers. So anyway, I'm just looking at this and I'm saying, what the hell? You have a turban. You have a whole bunch of stuff here. A wood turned piece of lathe. Maybe those are turned on a lathe. I don't know. But so this is actually my punk saw. So I was trying to convince people that this was the Caltech beavers. In other words, those posts were all being chewed up by the beavers, uh, and that the Ottoman aviator was involved here, and that he was the first camel jockey. And I told you about Project Camel, and I eventually led you to a location out in California. This was basically a spoof because I actually think that this. So, anyway, if you go to my website, this was all just one big spoof because I actually think that this has to do with Kansas. I think it has to do with the water towers, and I think it has to do uh, with a location in near Herman Park. So there's a park in Topeka, Kansas, that's next to Herman, and you can see Herman right next to the park. But again, they're punking you. They don't want you to find any of this shit. So basically, what this has to do with is a tiny park in Topeka, Kansas called Cushionberry Park. And if you match the information in the back of the book about the Brown versus the Board of Education stories, it'll eventually take you to the park, Cushionberry Park. And that airplane is basically falling out of the sky, obviously. Those leaves are larkspurs. They will fall out of the sky. And there's a rich doctor in the back of the book. So the verse that has to do with this is view the three stories of Mitchell. Okay, Margaret Mitchell wrote three stories in her whole life. And one of them is Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind is one of the stories in that book. As you walk the beating of the world at a distance in time from three who lived there. Well, I think that's, probably a church reference to a church location, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. At a distance in space from a woman with harpsichord silently playing. Okay, so this is a riddle. A woman with a harpsichord silently playing is somebody that took the hammer out of it. Because you can hit the keys of a harpsichord and they won't make any noise. Unlike a piano that actually plucks a string, a harpsichord uses a hammer. And if you take the hammers out of the harpsichord, you have a woman that silently plays it. Well, there is a famous woman in history that has a place named after her, and her name's Mamie Eisenhower. And she could be silently playing a harpsichord at the Eisenhower Building complex. Step on nature, cast in copper, ascend the 92 steps. There's 92 steps to get to the Capitol building in Topeka, Kansas. The dome is cast in copper. After climbing the Grand 200, okay, this now gives you a reference to masonry and the order of Masons. And so now you're going to have the next location is the Masonry building. Pass the compass and reach the foot of the culvert. Okay, so now you've passed the sign of masonry, the compass. So the next two steps, the grand 200 and the compass, point you to a masons, the masons, masonry, if you will. So from that point of the masonry building, you need to get to the foot of the culvert below the bridge, and then walk 100 paces southeast over rock and soil to the first young birch. Okay, you're on site now. It's giving you the exact distances to walk. Past 3 Spain West, you'll see a letter from the country of Wonderstone's hearth. Okay, well, this is going to be, what do we have? A ruby? Or no, Persia. The ruby came from Persia. So you're going to see a P, an E, an R, an S, an I, or an A. Well, do you use the A because it says a letter? Or do you use the P? Well, I use the P. Of Wonderstone's hearth. Well, you're probably in a park now and you're looking at a hearth. Like you're looking at a stone structure where you can cook on within the park. Many parks have these stone hearth structures. On a proud, tall fifth, at its southern foot, the treasure waits. So I guess you need to go to the fifth birch. Now, in this park, there's a prominent feature. There's a buffalo. And if you look very closely in this one image right here, there's actually a buffalo looking in this image. And it's exactly as the buffalo appears. Old Buff. So if you go to Cushenberry Park, Topeka, Kansas, look at Old Buff. And look at its southern foot. They've now poured some new concrete. And so it's probably going to be impossible. And you notice how this foot is enlarged on this, the southern foot on that right there. So this image here, I think, is giving you some of the information. And if you replace the camel's head on this with a buffalo head, you're getting the Old Buff. In other words, this is Old Buff with a camel's head. So you need to replace and put the appropriate buffalo head on the camel. And that actually gives you the exact location of the treasure. All right. So Houston, we definitely have a problem. And if you look up from Old Buff, right across the park is Herman Excavating. Herman's Park. They're jacking with you. So the next one is this Montreal image, and I bid on it pretty well. I believed everything they said about this being in Montreal because we had the fingers and these eyes look like somebody that might be at the chateau, at an overlook, like if those viewing machines where you can overview the city. And this might be more confirmation that the people looking at Montreal are correct, because if you consider the top of this image to be the Drapeau Park, and that these eyes are looking from up there downwards to the true location, and the true location being the leg eater. So I don't know if these two eyes are focused on the leg eater over here, and that you need to look in that area. But I don't know. I'm never going to go to Quebec to look for this, so it doesn't really matter. So if you use the no slow method, which is the near object site location, so you've got the cocked hat, right? It's cocked hat. You could possibly look at James McGill wearing a tricorn hat, right? So you got the tricorn cocked hat. We looked at James McGill, famous Canadian, Then you've got the whole story about the argyle uh, fabric. And then you've got Burnside, right, up there at Byron, Mount Stephen, George Stephen. And if you look at the face of the image figure, you'll notice that there's these collars. The one side actually looks like the state of Oklahoma, by the way. But I'm sure it's Montreal. But anyway, so you've got all the usual predictors. But I'm going to not spend a whole lot of time on my solve. You can look at it. The leg eater, they show the leg eater. Um, they talk about the building up there. But my solve location for this one was up at Mount Royal Park. And, you can look at the observation station. You can look at the cutoff fingers. You can look at the raccoon. There are so many raccoons in that park. Um, the first chapter, written in water, near men with wind roads. Behind bending branches and a green picket fence at the base of a tall tree, you can still hear the honking. Well, I think the honking is the Canadian geese. Uh, then it says shell, limestone, silver, and salt. So these are things that you would raise a rose garden. Shell, limestone, silver, and salt. All those are things that would raise that. The stars move by day and the sails pass by night. Even in darkness like moonlight and teardrops over the tall grass, years pass, rain falls. And so I think this is somewhere in the St. Lawrence Seaway. It could be near the Grand Staircase. That hat could be the hat that Elton John was wearing in his Rocket Man. The nose looks like a rocket. Liberace performed at the Chateau at Mount Royal. Um, there's a park up there at Mount Royal that could speak to this. Bending branches. There's a tall tree. Uh, so I don't know. Could be uh, up there. I don't know where it's at. So that's Montreal. Again, I'll never go there. Hopefully, I used the right verse for that. Okay, what do we have next? Okay, go back to the top. Click on the next one. So we have image 10, possibly Milwaukee. All right, image 10 in Milwaukee. I presented a solve for Milwaukee on my YouTube channel. I'm going through my first impressions of The Secret when I first got into this 2 years ago. So basically, I like my first impressions. I did that before I got clouded with all the noise coming from Florida and the East Coast, Texas, and other places, New York. Then there's the guy in Cleveland that's been misleading people for years, and now his son's doing it. It's despicable behavior. But anyway, image 10. So people think this is in Milwaukee, and I actually think that it's Salt Lake City, Utah. And I think it's Utah even more now that I think that the other one is in Cherokee Park. Because if you just listen to the background noise of the people involved in The Secret, who created The Secret, like Ben and the early people, they actually know more than they're telling you, and they punk you constantly by giving you answers that are correct to the wrong puzzles. It's their fun that they're having. So, anyway, what I see is a bird in the hand, two seer stones, the key to the kingdom, the walking stick from Brigham Young, the primrose path. They call this a millstone. I'm okay with a millstone because there's a mill right near the location. And then there's this little item here. But I think the state of Utah is pretty well pictured in the image. It's in the collar detail. I mean, it's the state of Utah. The state of Utah. The state of Utah. It's Utah. Look at Utah. Look at the image. Look at it. Not all of those are the same. Not all of these in this detail are the same. But there is that one right there. Okay. John Michaels has sent the community on a desperate attempt to explain the two spires. Well, there's so many places that you can have the two spires looking like this. If I take the building out of the back that wasn't there, you could simply have, a building with the two spires that look like that and not be in Milwaukee. So we're going to talk about Brigham Young. Here's the statue of a cane. Who in Milwaukee needed a cane? Abel? I don't know. I'm trying to explain the walking cane. Oh, it's just there because it's a mill. Well, it's not in the right order. Explain what the two balls are for Milwaukee, the seer stones. But anyway, I see Brigham Young here, and I see him in front of this statue right here. We got Joseph Smith, and then we've got the seer stones and the breastplate, the key of the kingdom. We've got the books buried in the cape, which are the Mormon texts, right? We've got the crutch for the cane. The cane can also be used for Joseph Smith or the other one. You've got the cicada, the Salt Lake cicada in the background. And we've all talked about the Salt Lake cicada. Look at the hard shell on the tabernacle. And maybe instead of this being a millstone, maybe this is actually a wheel from an immigrant handcart. And most of the Mormons arrived in using pull carts or hand carts. Very important part of the Mormon pilgrimage was how they migrated to first Nouveau and then all the way out to Salt Lake City. And I don't even care if you call this a millstone, because that was a very important part of the Mary Elizabeth Fielding and Joseph Smith. They were the first settlers in the Mill Creek area. So this was actually called Mill Creek. Okay. Mill Creek is basically where BYU is, Brigham Young. Bird in the hand, there's a couple statues. So we get to the solve idea. In the shadow of the great giant. So you could either call that the Mormon Church, or you could call that the statue of Brigham Young. Find the arm that extends over the slender path. Well, there's good old Brigham Young with his arm. Look at the position of Brigham. Here's the most important part of this. Look at the position of Brigham Young's hand and fingers in the image. And then go back and look at the statue and look at the perfect positioning of the fingers of Brigham Young in the Brigham Young statue. Look at the hand and the bird in the hand image, and look at the position of the thumb and the fingers in the Brigham Young statue. So In the shadow of the gray giant, find the arm that extends over the slender path. In summer, you'll often hear a whirring sound. Yeah, the cicadas. The cars abound. The reason the cars abound is because good old uh, uh, Brigham Young used to be in the middle of the street until they moved him back. So when the book was written, the statue here of Brigham Young was on a center island in the middle of the street, and they moved him back. Although the sign nearby speaks of Indy's native, the natives still speak of him of hard words in 3 volumes. Well, this is the story of Brigham Young. Okay. Um, Take it twice as many steps east as the hour or more from the middle of one branch of the V. Okay, so now we've actually moved down to the Abravanel Music Hall. So, um, so from the statue that's in the middle of the street, all you have to do is move to Abravanel Hall, and this is the where you'll get this design, uh, and the V is pretty noticeable from street view, but I just put the above view on here so I can illustrate it. But anyway, it says, from the middle of one branch of the V, look down and see simple roots in rhapsodic man's soil, or gaze north towards the Isle of B. Okay, so remember, back when the book was written, Brigham Young sitting in the middle of the street in Salt Lake City. And you have that little planter box area right there, where you could have had the treasure located. So that's my solve for Salt Lake City, for what people think is in Milwaukee. If you like the Milwaukee idea, I did later do a video on my YouTube channel showing you how you could get to a location based upon City Hall and going to a park that's next to a library that has 3 volumes that have harsh words about, I think, Jefferson. So if you like your idea there for Milwaukee, just refer back to that. But this is my first impression before all the other people that did videos, all the other people that have YouTube channels, all the other people that post on Facebook and social media. I picked up the book, The Secret. I read it, read the back of the book, went through it, and put together solve ideas based upon the images and the verses without anybody's interference. And I've not touched these since I started and did them originally. So these are my first impressions. So historically, people's first impressions are usually the best. So this basically rounds out the. You could probably find an angle somewhere of all these spires in Salt Lake City that you could take a picture and it would look like, from a certain angle, the top of the building in Milwaukee. So I put this final picture in here just to show you that if you found the right place to take a picture based upon these spires and how they align, especially especially the roof line of this building in connection with some of these others at the correct angle, you could get that picture. So anyway, I just threw that in there to point that out. All right, back to number 11. I'm almost done. I'm going to get this. I'm going to be out of the secret in less than another half hour. Okay, image 11, not Boston. Okay, I put this together, I think, about the time, I don't know when I put this together. But, okay, so when I looked at this image number 11, I immediately looked at the woman in the center and said, That's Lucille Ball. Because Lucy has this red hair, but her entire life she was dyeing her black hair red. Lucy was no more a redhead than she was a brunette or blonde. And then, I think that this image includes this element out of how did they ever explain this element here of the lady, the little girl with wings carrying the thing, and then this was the Boston Globe. That's a bee. That looks like an anaconda to me. That looks like an anaconda. Oh, by the way, that's where Lucy was. Her father was transferred out there. Oh, look at that. That's a ball. That's a ball. That's a ball. Look at the direction the bird's facing and look at the direction Lucy's facing. Lucy was afraid of birds because her father died when there was a bird loose in the house. That probably is Ricky Ricardo's cigar right there that the bird's sitting on. And then this is a basketball. So the image in the background has a seam above the window. There's one seam. There's another seam. There's a third seam, a fourth seam. So just put your hand over the big portal and put your hand up against it and look at it. You got a basketball. Oh, but you got a basketball in the belly. You got another basketball in the belly of the lady. And then the two letters in the belly are S and a C. Well, let's see what all this means. So first of all, I talked about good old Lucy having her red hair. And then our hands are holding a cask and closing the lid. Well, look closely at the lid. The lid in her hands, that's the whole shape of a movie clicker, right? So what she's doing is she's a movie producer. She's clicking a thing and saying, and scene. I don't know if we can make much of these tower structures in that because one of them, looks pretty familiar to the Chicago building. But maybe there's some buildings in another community that look like that. Point out the basketball belly, the seams above the window. Each of these balls has a million micro balls in it, if you will. It's Lucy Ball. There's also 7 and 8. There's bubbles in here. And then there's the bird on a perch. So let's look at Joellen Trilling. She's basically, maybe the image figures Joanne Trilling. Probably not. Anyway, she's been in New York and Kentucky. This is why I think that one in Keys Park is important, because Joanne, I think, has a lot to do with the one in that one. So here we've got Desiree Lucille Ball, and there's her red hair, right? There's her facial structures. So her father was Henry Durrell Ball. He worked for the Bell Telephone Company. So in the back of the book, you've got that Bell Telephone thing. I think it says Bell Telephone on something. Probably a reason the back of the book has some confirmations. But good old, she was one of the first 13 colonies. Her family dates back to the earliest settlers. They moved to Anaconda, Montana. Now, she's also Swedish, by the way. She's Swedish. So you go back to the spotter's tips, and Ball recalled little from her father, except the bird getting trapped in the house, which caused her to have a lifelong ornithophobia. Ball's step-grandfather was Swedish, who banished all mirrors from the house except over the bathroom sink. Well, there's a bathroom sink in there, right? A neighborhood boy was accidentally shot and paralyzed by someone's target shooting in their yard under the supervision of Ball's grandfather. Oops, there's a little pockmark. So there's the number 212 degrees in here. And, when I started researching this, I finally figured that that actually is an appropriate boiling point, if you will. But you know, the reason Hattie Carnegie was the one that convinced Ball to dye her hair, and she's also wearing a sequin and sable coat. And a famous quote from Hattie was that Lucy said, "Hattie taught me how to slouch properly in a $1,000 hand sewn sequin dress, and how to wear a $40,000 sable coat as casually as a rabbit." Okay, is that not a is that not the case here? Sequin dress and sable coat. She was a cigarette girl, so maybe that's a cigarette. I talked about the movie Clicker. She was in the movie Chatterbox, and maybe that's what we're talking about. Uh, uh, she was known as around Hollywood as the Queen of the Bees, and that doesn't mean Boston, by the way. So the bee with the anaconda stake in it. Uh, I Love Lucy was a common show. She taught at Cal State, Northridge. Uh, and then you get into these TV screens that are in the background. And uh, so this all led me to the Jamestown, New York, the Celeron area, mainly was settled by the Swedish people. And There's a famous ornithologist called Roger Tory Peterson that's germane to this community. And he put out a book called A Field Guide to the Fair People. So well, whatever. It was a fair guide. It wasn't, anyway. Um, so the Pendergast Library is here, the Erie Rail Station. So and part of that little clicker, there's a castle structure. And I think it's this Erie Railroad Station building. So I think just as you had a picture in the Chicago image of a landmark, so too in Jamestown, you have the castle uh, and the Jamestown Armory. So I think that's in the picture. Um, so the spanner wrench, you can see the spanner wrench here. Well, that was from the Crescent Tool Company, and in the back of the book, you actually have you actually have in this image another crescent wrench, and then you have another series of crescent wrench. Then in the image of the ball, you have a faint moon crescent wrench, and then you have another crescent wrench in the other ball. Well, these aren't wrenches; they're crescents. Okay, so the crescent wrench was produced by Carl Peterson at the Crescent Tool Company in Jamestown in 1907. But wait, there's more. There's the Blackstones, because this is the furniture capital of the world because of Reginald Lena. There's a picture in the back of the book of Lucy in a washing machine. So I earlier showed you a picture of Lucille Ball, right? And now I'm showing you the doll that Joe Ellen created of Lucille Ball coming out of the washing machine. And then they also show you a picture of Lucy on top of a radiator, right? Well, that's 212 degrees, the boiling point, a radiator's boiling point. Well, guess what all was made in Jamestown and Celeron, New York? Well, the Blackstone Company made radiators. We got this guy. It's got another crescent wrench and a toaster and some other stuff. And the Amana Company, the washing machines, all these things, furniture, all produced in this area. Well, why do you ask? Is this important? Well, because we need a puzzle for the Swedes, and we also need a puzzle, uh, another puzzle to be solved. And so you end up going to the bottle that's in the picture. Another one of the companies that was in that picture is this Adamantine company. And these had to do with the Eastman Kodak ended up buying this photography. So the Desilu is important. because that's stylistically the same as this lettering. The heart is important because it's I Love Lucy. And the Acme Giants were the first black baseball team, and they were the team spirit because they came from Jamestown. So my final destination for the puzzle that has to do with Lucille Ball is in Lucy's hometown. Uh, so the verse goes, past two friends of octave. So you've got these two octagonal shaped structures in this park. In December, ride the Man of Oz. Well, the Man of Oz invented basketball. The Man of Oz invented basketball. So here you have this basketball court, right? To the land near the window, there's a road that leads to dark forest. Well, that dark forest is probably the black top forest, um, where white is in color with two maps. Well, here's the white that's in color. Look, there's a border around the background, and there's two maps equally folded at half court. You have one map of a basketball court, and then you have the other map of a basketball court. After circle and square, okay, the circle, well, that's not really a square, maybe, I don't know. A half court, is each of those halves square? The lane's not quite square, that's more like a rectangle. In July and August, a path beckons to mica and driftwood. Under that which may be last touched or first seen standing, look north at the wing and dig. Okay, so if you consider that the backboards that were produced in 1980 were often made of mica and driftwood. The last thing that's going to be touched is going to be the goal, but it's also going to be the first seen standing. So from this point, you need to look at the wing. Okay, so what is the wing in basketball? What is the wing? Where's the wing at? Where's the wing? Well, we all know the wing is it's either one of four places based upon this diagram. It's either here, 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 or here, right? Now you're going to dig to achieve by dauntless and inconquerable determination your goal. Because there's your goal. Your goal is right there. So to solve this one, you would have to go to the wing, which is probably the foul line extended, right? So go to the foul line extended on whichever one of these would take you to the north. And that would probably get you to the exact location. So I think the Celeron New York puzzle could be solved pretty easy if somebody would just decouple that whole bullshit from Boston and actually look at where Joanne Trilling came from. Look where Joanne Trilling grew up. Look at where the man from Oz. Okay, I'm not going to give you the full history of basketball here, but James Naismith is the word you need to look up. See where James Naismith grew up or was born. Go see where Naismith has been. The woman has a basketball in her belly. It's right here. There's basketball above her window. The whole circle looks like a basketball hoop. And, oh, jeez. I look at this puzzle and I go, this is not so puzzling. There's a little heart up here, right up here. There's a heart. There's a heart right here. There's the Jamestown tornado right here. The it's just too easy. I think there's a note right there too. I'm not sure. All right. Are we done? No, we're not. We got one more puzzle. So let's go back up to the top of the presentation. Let's go to my New York City Bath Beach solve. And I like New York so much, I put together several solves for this one. So here you go. Let's look at my first impression of the New York puzzle. We had all those things that were common to the puzzles, right? You know, but the thing that stuck out to me was this bath, this robe, this bathrobe. You know, the image figure's wearing a bathrobe, right? And then you've got this hairy chest. You've got this kind of anchor in the forehead. And this image is kind of suspended above water. And then you've got this strange looking bird that looks like it's a stork at this point carrying a baby or something. So this is what I came up with. So, you know, if this is truly the Verrazano Bridge, right? You got to go a couple of places with this. You can go to Saturday Night Fever. You can go to, you know, all that direction. But if you think this is Diker Beach, that that's a dike in the image, and that this is Snowball, is that a snowball? I don't know. So she said he held his right arm down stiffly, as though he were carrying something partly up his sleeve. Well, what is up that sleeve? Is there a gun or a knife or anything? Then on August 11th, Berkowitz was arrested. It's 11 o'clock. Harvey, his neighbor's dog. So is this a rabbit? Or is this Harvey, the neighbor's dog? Is it Coney Island and this is a rabbit? Or is this some sort of dog? I don't know. She recalled another vital detail. There was a cream-colored Ford Galaxy parked illegally near a fire hydrant. Oh, there's your cream-colored. Is that fire? Anyway, experts would later opine that Berkowitz descended into madness and set off by discovery of a few years before he became Sam. There's a stork legs. There's a stork. Stork body and wing. Falcon head. Berkowitz was born Richard David Falco. He was abandoned by his mother. So there's this famous mugshot of Berkowitz in a white t-shirt with a hairy chest. So, you know, was this David Berkowitz? He served at Fort Knox. Hello from the gutters of New York City is a line in the letter he wrote to the columnist Jimmy Breslin. Is that a gutter? I don't know. And on the front seat in plain view was a machine gun poking from a duffel bag labeled D. Berkowitz. So I've looked at this nose, and I'm looking at this nose, and I'm seeing a gun. I'm seeing a gun right under his nose. Anyway. At the time of his arrest, was working as a letter sorter at the United States Postal Service. Your clue is 10 by 13. Your clue is 10 by 13, by the way. So on 31st, Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Valenti were in the car at Bath Beach. Valenti lost his left eye, and the poor old Moskowitz. So I don't know. Is that an eyeball? I don't know. Is this an Ishihara test? Is that an Ishihara test? Look, there's no eyes in this image. So anyway, they also found diaries they had kept since he was 21 years old, three stenographers' notebooks, nearly with notes, including some arson. Are these the hard words in three volumes? Whoops, I used the wrong verse there. Anyway, there's a gap in the neck, so great neck. So here's this basketball court. Here's this garden, and I think that there's a carrot. I think there's a carrot in the image figure. There's a V in the tree, so one branch of the V. Okay, I've started using the wrong verses now. But look at these basketball goals in Bath Beach Park. Did you notice how these basketball goals all had windows on them? And then if you go back to the image figure and see how that's just like a bunch of windows, probably a stretch. So here's a picture of I had a car underneath the street light. Uh, there's this magnifying detective work. So the magnifying glass is detective work. Solve the puzzle. Here's a view from the street by the park of the. So if you're sitting, oh, this is actually the view of the cannon in John Paul Jones Park. If that's the cannon in John Paul Jones Park, I don't know. Again, at the time I was doing this, I was using the wrong verse because I was trying to fit it. But it makes more sense if you read the verse this way. Where M and B are set in stone, and this is the Manhattan and Brooklyn Bridge, and to Congress R is known, this is Roosevelt Island. L sits, and that's Liberty, and left beyond his shoulder is Fair Folks Treasure Holder. The end of 10 by 13 is your clue. That's a letter, office, post office. Fence and fixture central 2. That leads you to Central Park. For finding jewel cask, seek the sounds of rumble, brush, and music. Hush. So if you reinterpret all of this and put yourself at Central Park, um, and you seek the sounds of rumble, brush, and music. Hush. You're probably at the Balto statue. Uh, you're probably at the Balto statue. So just ignore all this crap about cars abound bullshit because these are all mismatched. They're not right. All these things I did because I looked at 12 treasures originally, yeah, led me down the wrong direction in all these puzzles because you got to match them to the right place. So I've got to solve for Battery Park in here. I got to solve for Asser Levy. I give you my solve for Kansas for image 8 in here. And and then I give you the tribute solve and show you how I solve the tribute puzzle. So anyway, I'll see if there's anybody in the chat with any further comments. Probably just Jeff. So let's end the share. I've been sharing a lot today. Stop sharing. Go to the live stream. Well, I'm back on the live stream. Well, it took me officially 2 hours and 23 minutes to rid myself of this burden in my life. I'm now free. I'm now free of this burden in my life called the book, The Secret. I guess I have some ill feelings towards the people that sponsored the tribute. And I think it was because of the tribute treasure hunt, I actually went and bought the secret book and worked on some of this information puzzles. And I thought this was going to be a community of open-minded, free-thinking individuals who were open to new ideas about the secret in hopes of finding an actual treasure location. But once I got involved in it, it ended up being the same people posting the same information over and over again, trying to push a narrative about the secret and the puzzles that were solved and how they were solved and how their mismatched images were the correct way in which to go about solving this. Over the roughly 2+ years I spent in this community, I only found 5 or 6 people that were interested in even exploring ideas outside of the norm. I posted regularly on the Facebook page. I'm going to delete everything I posted there because nobody ever listened to what I had to say anyway. And I produced all of these videos on this channel. And early on, I produced the other uh, document, which I went through today. Um, I think the only thing that was possibly able to be solved in this whole entire group of puzzles was the tribute. And unfortunately, when John Michaels died, uh, all the secrets, I think, of the tribute went with them because the other people that were involved in that, frankly, just wanted to keep the cast for themselves and didn't have much interest beyond doing that. And so, if I make this appeal to those who may still know something about the secret tribute to come forward and give us some additional clues. I think it's about time. It would be an opportunity to honor John Michaels, uh, celebrate his life by having that one found. And then we could see what kind of puzzle maker John really was. And uh, since there doesn't seem to be anybody wanting to even show proof of existence, there's nobody that even wants to show proof of existence of the 13th cask. There was a video of John unwrapping the plastic display that the cask was hidden in and buried underground when he went and retrieved it because of activity in the area. There was a great video shown of him, how the thing had broken a little bit and he was going to maybe have Joe Ellen restore it or whatever. But since that happened, and that video came out, and the explanation that there was a proxy involved, since the time that there's an announcement that the true cask had been removed from the ground and the proxy had been put in place to replace it, there's been nothing to assist the community in finding that particular treasure. It seems like this guy by the name of Kit Palancar, who I actually think knows where it was hidden, because who's going to have a co-creator of a treasure hunt and that person not be able to tell you exactly where it was hidden? In what world does that exist? Fantasyland? It exists in Fantasyland. You have to have enough information about where something's going to be hidden in order to incorporate clues into a puzzle, and especially if you're painting something. And so I just frankly don't believe any narrative surrounding the idea that Kit Palancar does not know where John Michaels secreted the tribute. I'm not going to listen to any narrative about that because it can't be a true narrative. It's got to be not true. At least he'd have an idea of what the image elements were to represent, who the image figure was to represent, what all the Rebuses were to represent, etc. And this whole idea that nobody that if you want to do a service to the community, and Forrest Fenn eventually did this service to his community because people were getting harmed, would be to correct the existing narrative of where people are looking for the treasure and exclude it as a solved location. So I guess what I'm saying is that for me to even think that the secret is a real treasure hunt at this point in time, not well, that's not a real treasure hunt either, but to even entertain the possibility that the secret tribute is a real treasure hunt at this time, I think is a fallacy because there's nobody publicly managing it to any degree that will lead to anybody finding it. And when when people started getting trouble at along the Rio Grande, at least Forrest Fenn came forward and said it's not associated with the Rio Grande River. A simple statement saying that this treasure is not associated with Cherokee Park would obviously lead itself to people being upset, not buying paintings from the person who painted it, not supporting the channel that for over 2 years has been producing the narrative that's in Cherokee Park. And I think there'd be a lot of people upset with that because, frankly, the only people that are even interested in the tribute are the group of people that exchange ideas about it being in Cherokee Park. And so that's not a community, that's a cult. So, I think I'm done with the cult of secret. I think I'm done with the cult of this, the tribute because they don't want to listen to anybody from the outside giving them an idea that doesn't align with their own. And, the ultimate pleasure in this could be to sit back and give out 100 different solves to a location in Cherokee Park and have people go look for each and every one of them because they're based upon good ideas that might make sense based upon what other people have said and not what the puzzle tells you to do. And, the game could be how many airline miles can I get somebody to fly? I can keep this tally. This could be the only fun left in the tribute. And that is to keep a tally of how many things you could post on Facebook to get people to then actually travel to a spot to look for a treasure that's not there. Oh, hold on. That's what John Collins Black's doing right now. The whole genre of treasure hunting is, I've spent 15 years of my life now in the genre of supposed treasure hunts, and I've yet to find any of these treasures to have been found by a complete anonymous stranger who did not have some connection with somebody who sponsored the treasure hunt. And this goes all the way back to the days of Kit Williams when they put out the treasure hunt over in England for the golden hare. You can even extend that to the David Blaine treasure hunt where some troll on the message boards ends up finding the treasure well, which troll was going to find it because they posted the answer right there. It was basically the first one to read that information off of the message board was going to find it. And so, because they wanted to get out of that one before somebody got hurt, injured, or otherwise. And, Forrest Fenn, I think, to some extent, did the same thing because he's old. He wanted to get rid of his treasure hunt, so he found a patsy to find it. Sketchy details, no details whatsoever. That treasure hunt ended up with a group of people creating a narrative that it was found at 9 Mile Hole with no absolute proof from the finder himself that was the location. And so, treasure hunts are not fair. They're usually found by somebody that's known, or they're found by a made up person that they wanted to have find their treasure. And the sad thing is that I think the cause is good. I think Byron Preiss's idea here of giving people something to look for was good. But the main purpose of his book, The Secret, was to basically, I think Byron Preiss's main reason for putting this book together was he had Kelly and Mann in his ear saying, "Hey, we've written these books called The Lemmings. Have you ever seen our movie called, the Beaver that took New York, or the whatever it was?" And there was these people, and he was a publisher. And this was like, well, fuck, I could probably sell 1 million books and only have to buy $5,000 worth of items. And this is a great way to sell books. And I think he just merely looked at this as a publishing idea. I don't think he really wanted or was a puzzle maker. He was a book packager. His company was sometimes making money, other times not making so much money. He was on the edge of the comic community. He was on the very edge of the full form comic book, which wasn't really in vogue. And, the comic book community kind of panned him somewhat. He had several big investors where a lot of his profit actually went to people that had an investment Byron Preiss Publishing. Uh, and you can read the Securities and Exchange documents to find out who Byron Preiss was. And, you know, he had to make money to support a family. He did draw a pretty handsome salary from Byron Preiss Publishing, but eventually, you know, without his stewardship and the fact that his book publishing ideas hadn't moved forward fast enough to catch up with technology, uh, I think his company was in financial troubles when his car careened off the road, you know, ran into the tree. And so I'm not calling that a suicide or anything, but I'm just saying that uh, it would have been very interesting to see the next 5 years of that publishing industry's leader and what he was able to put forth in the coming years. But we didn't have to see that because obviously he perished in a car accident. Similarly, you know, we're not going to see anything from John Michaels either because he, you know, perished, and nobody's ever told me under what circumstances that happened. But um, when the author is no longer around to answer for their actions, I don't think you have much left to look at or investigate. And this is the same reason I pretty much said Forrest Fenn's. You know, there's family that's left, but yeah, I don't think you're going to get answers from those people either. So um, I don't understand why most of these treasures that get created, why the person that sponsors them ends up being gone before they get found. Um, you know, it seems to be the irony of the treasure hunting community. Um, so, uh, a fair treasure hunt is one that has an outcome. A fair treasure hunt is one that has a definite time frame in which the treasure hunt will be available and to be found. And a fair treasure hunt is one that has uh, the answer so you can compare your ideas to the given solution. You may not always agree with the given solution, but at least you have that answer. Uh, for the most part, all of Byron Price's treasures don't have an answer except for the one in Cleveland. And I think I filled in a few of the details that they left out there. Uh, the one in Boston has no answer because they frankly just brute force waited for the caterpillar to dig in the spot and they were using the wrong information to get to that spot. And then you have the original one in Chicago, which apparently there was enough dialogue back and forth through letters or telephone calls or communication that led to its discovery. And, you know, it's a year in, nobody's found anything. Book sales have tailed off. Let's start a second wave. Hey, something's been found. Something's been found. So now we'll get some people back interested in this. And I don't know if there was a second flush. You know, we got a book in Japan, printed in some foreign languages, and this kind of thing happened. But um, you know, by and large, I'm not sure what the secret book was about as far as a treasure hunt. What I will say is this: I think the secret book, A Treasure Hunt, was and is a great commentary on society of the 1980s and what people thought were interesting and historically uh, funny uh, in a different time. In other words, you know, if you watch the show Laugh In, or you watched any of the Monty Python series, or if you were involved in any of the National Lampoon, either movies or their contribution to their own magazine, or even perhaps looking at, um, you know, some of the other things that Kelly and Mann wrote uh, for various publications, it shows you how people accepted people with disabilities, how people accepted people with uh, race differences, gender differences. Uh, it shows how people were portrayed in that period of time. Today, most of that's not terribly acceptable behavior. And so there's nobody that's going to come forward from that generation and say that, hey, we made slurs against the Mormons. Hey, we made slurs against the African American community. Hey, we made slurs against the homosexual community. Hey, we made slurs about rich and famous, the Rockefeller family. Hey, we made fun of Lucille Ball's hair. We made fun of George S. Patton, one of the greatest journals in American history. Uh, we made fun of him. Today, people will not tolerate that type of humor. And so, what The Secret ends up in the final analysis is it becomes a book written in a period of time where the social norms and mores of what was acceptably funny uh, changed. The people who put that information together lived beyond that time. And people, because it's a treasure hunt, still go back and read this piece of literature, from now nearly almost 50 years ago. And so you can't take a look at The Secret, a treasure hunt book, through the lens of political correctness, through the lens of acceptance, through the lens of how we accept behavior in society today and what we think is humorous and funny. By and large, the only thing you can make fun of is your own personal sex life. Because most of the stand-up comedians today, all they do is make jokes about their own, personal lives. They don't ever attack another group, another gender, another race. And they don't attack anything except their own self in most of the humor these days. And frankly, I don't think that's very good for the comedians that put out that type of humor. You know what I mean? I don't think that's good for the comedians, but we laugh about it. I mean, you can tell a joke about having a boyfriend, and if you don't name that boyfriend, you know that that's about what we're limited to these days, is making fun of our relationships and things we've done on our own. We can't accept the Archie Bunker. There is no acceptance of an Archie Bunker. But the greatest gift that people like Byron Preiss and Archie Bunker and the characters that were created during this period of time was that by having this in front of people, they realized their own hypocrisies about their views about race, their views about religion, gender identity, etc. And so, as another generation came forward after that generation, they formed a separate set of opinions about whether or not that was socially acceptable humor. The problem with all this is that eventually people become numb to their surroundings and they don't recognize people's individuality, and so uh, the appreciation of each individual heritage. So the Secret Book sets out and shows you that there's Germans, there's Swedish people, there's African American communities, there's English, and there's ancestry and Latin America, all of this. And so in the period of 1980s literature, you have a book about the immigration of people to the United States. It is a commentary. It is actually a commentary and historical perspective of our view of how we saw immigration in that period of time. Contrast that to today, where we've got, if you say anything bad about somebody that came across the border and lit somebody on fire in a subway, and you say that that was bad and wrong, society looks at you as being a bigot, somebody that is against the people that came across the border. So it doesn't matter, but it does. And as we have become so immune to all these differing views about society, we've lost our identity. And as as our country goes forward from this point on, and we continue to lose our identity to the collective, uh, people will no longer appreciate uh, fundamental differences in their culture. They become one not monogamous homogenation of no ideas, no beliefs, no identity. And then people are just going to keep going down that path of I don't belong to anything. I can't belong to anything. If I belong to something, then I'm discriminating against someone else. And I don't, that's just the way we've trended from the 1980, 81, 82 time frame to now. Okay, well, I apologize for giving my thoughts on society and the differences between The Secret and today, but I think it's important to contextually do that. Uh, it's acceptable now to not have an answer to a problem. And in the past, uh, people always wanted to have some information, an answer. And this book's filled with answers we'll never get. And came from the generation that, looks for something finite and something to believe in. And I frankly don't believe in any of this anymore because it's not going anywhere. Though it's not going anywhere because there's nobody to steer the ship. There's nobody. You can't steer the Titanic any longer. And for the most part, the secret of treasure hunt is the Titanic. It's sitting at the bottom of the ocean. There's a few people that want to probe and look at it, see if they can figure something out about it. But most people want to leave it buried underneath the ocean and not bring it up to the surface because of what it represents. And I think that's the way it is. And I kind of feel like I was the iceberg, and here I am. I'm trying to find out answers, and trying to actually solve these puzzles. And you got to get roadblocks from everybody in the community. And nobody who created this book wants to ever have the Titanic raised from the depths of the ocean. So I appreciate everybody that's joined in and watched my shows in the past on the Secret Solve channel. Appreciate anybody that's looked at the tribute solve that I presented, and appreciate anybody that's joining in right now. But probably be the last show I do on the Secret Solve channel. If you're interested in anything that I'm up to in the future concerning treasure hunts, I ended up getting the book by John Collins Black. There's treasure inside, and I'm going to focus my spare time on this. And again, it's another treasure hunt book, but I think my role in this treasure hunt is probably just going to be formulating the ideas of what I thought the author was up to in a certain chapter and what he was trying to point you to in what direction and where. I really don't have much intention to going out spending money other than the $50 I spent on this book. I spent $50 on much less fruitful causes than actually owning a piece of paper that says something on it. So, that's what I intend to do. And, I'll be doing shows on that book and trying to point to the locations and of those treasure boxes. And if I give somebody an idea that leads to a discovery, maybe they'll mention me. I don't care. The money is kind of, I would like a Bitcoin here or there, but the whole game for me was to outsmart the person who wrote the book. And I just came to the conclusion that the guy wasn't that good of author. He wasn't that great of clue maker. And that when you got to the tribute, the person that put that together was using false information and assumptions from the 12 Treasures group and the other group that led you to a destination that was easier to find because they used the falsities and all you had to do is identify them. And then when you outsmarted them, they weren't willing to accept they got outsmarted. Uh, so that's my summary. Wish you good luck and live long and prosper.